Guys, let's talk about it. You know, I have to first of all start by saying to you, I get amused. Honestly, I do. I get amused when I see Nkanduluo and her group of PF associates hold hands and they sing the song, "We Shall Overcome." We shall. They're holding hands. Notice the only person that doesn't sing along is Miles. And there's a good reason for that. Miles knows the ridiculousness of it all. When you see Miles, I know Miles like the back of my hand. I know exactly what he's thinking. When Miles is standing in the midst of those vagabonds, is standing in the midst of those despots, is standing in the midst of those has-beens, and they're singing that song, they have bastardized a civil rights song, and they have tried to fit it into their wayward agenda, holding PF members holding hands, singing the civil rights song, "We Shall Overcome." We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in our hearts. Overcome what? You presided over one of the most brutal regimes that this nation has ever known. You presided over a regime that was one of the most rancorous regimes that has ever been ushered into office and power. And the moment the Zambian people sent you the strong message that we will not live under this brutality anymore, we will not be subjected to your arbitrary malice and rancor and violence. We're going to take and point this nation in a different direction. The moment we say that as a people, as the electorate, you jokers turn around and say, "Well, we shall overcome someday. Deep in our hearts, we know." Makes me sick to my stomach. You know, honestly, when they start singing that song, I literally physically feel ill. Because we forget the brutality of the PF. And one of the reasons I feel we forget is because the brutality is largely undocumented. You know, the reason that we can still talk about the Holocaust today, the reason we can still talk about Nazi Germany's attempt to erase and to wipe out an entire generation, the reason the Holocaust is still on the lips of humanity, the reason slavery, the brutal, systemic dehumanization of a race, of the African race, the reason we can still talk about slavery is because it's documented. But the PF regime's brutality is by and large undocumented. I'll give you a very good example. You remember the story of Amos Chilufya and the clans Zulu. Amos Chilufya was a PF member who passed away. Clans Zulu was a UPND member that passed away. Their funerals were being held at Memorial Park. Tell me in the comments if you remember this story. This is one of the most horrific stories that you will ever hear. It's sad. It's traumatic, to say the least. Tell me in the comments if you remember that funeral. Tell me in the comments. This is a very well documented in the sense that it was spoken about on social media. The incident was reported on social media, but the people that bore the brunt of those attacks I've never heard people give their testimony on camera and narrate the horror that they endured that day at Memorial Park when those two funerals occurred simultaneously. On the one hand, Amos Chilufya of PF was being buried. On the other hand, Clans Zulu of the UPND was being buried on the same day, on the same grounds. So on one side you've got UPND cadres, on the other side you've got PF cadres. In a PF regime. So obviously the PF in their minds felt at the time, this happened 8 years ago. The PF felt that they had the upper hand because at that time the PF was in government. But people don't know the horror, the brutality that the certain people endured. I'll give you an example of one gentleman. I will not name him, but he's still alive today. And when he narrates the story, you sit there and you think, how did we get here as a people? How did we convince ourselves that this was normal? This was a gentleman. He was a member of the UPND. He had attended the funeral of Clans Zulu. Clans Zulu was a member of the UPND. The UPND were burying their guy. At the same venue, Memorial Park, PF were burying Amos Chilufya, a PF member. One very notable UPND figure had attended that funeral, and he was walking through the gravesite when he was leaving the funeral of Clans Zulu, who was a UPND member. After the funeral, he was walking through Memorial Park on his way to his vehicle, and he encountered PF thugs. The thugs recognized him and they assaulted him with pangas and sticks. Now, this is a man, he's not a 20-year-old man. He's almost like a senior citizen. But because he was a member of the UPND and these young PF thugs recognized him, they proceeded to brutalize him, beat him to a pulp, almost crushing his skull, literally, almost crushing his skull. At one point, one of the PF thugs lifted a panga and said, "Today we're going to cut off your arm. And when we cut off your arm, we want you to take this arm, take it to Chimbokaila, where Hakainde Hichilema is being held. Where Hakainde Hichilema is in prison on treason charges." I'll say that in a moment. I'll say it right in a moment. They said to him, "We're going to cut off your arm so that you can take this amputated arm, take it to Chimbokaila prison, where your leader, Hakainde Hichilema, is being held on charges of treason. Send him this arm so that he knows that we as PF are present and we are not going anywhere." The PF thug rose, lifted the panga, and all of a sudden he just changed his mind and he ran off. The group that attacked that gentleman, the group of PF thugs that attacked that gentleman, they ran off and they left this man bloodied and beaten to a pulp. They had to rush him to the hospital. And the man narrates, he says, there's a certain point you reach when people are beating you and they're hitting your head with rocks and stones, there's a point you reach where you surrender. You just accept and say, okay, I'm going to die now. And he said that when you mentally, when you come to that realization, mentally, when you accept that, for some reason you feel peaceful. For some reason you feel no pain. And he said, I saw the man raise the panga, and in my mind I was fully expecting him to chop my arm off, because at that point I was so exhausted from being beaten that I just accepted that this is how I'm gonna die. But for some miracle, in some way, the PF thug changed his mind and they just ran off. That is a microcosm of the brutality of the PF. These are the same people that are holding hands today, 8 years later. Remember, this happened 8 years ago. This happened during the time that the PF was in power. This happened during the time that the PF thought and felt that their reign would last 1,000 generations. This was at a time when the PF thought that the sun would never set on their mighty, brutal empire. They were a law unto themselves. Thankfully, a few well-wishers, a few Samaritans came around and picked up the man and took him to the hospital. Now, let me ask you, when that man watches TV or social media and he sees Wankanduluo singing with other PF colleagues, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome what? Overcome what? How do you think that man feels when he watches Nkanduluo sing that song? One of the reasons these PF vagabonds have the courage of doing what they do is because the testimonies of the people that were victims during the reign of the PF, their testimonies have not been heard. Their stories have not been told. Their narrations have not been documented. We need a whole series of people that suffered under the hands and the brutality of the PF. We need genuine, real stories of people that endured hell during that time. We need to hear those stories. And in my view, I would have liked to see a situation. You know, Hakainde Hichilema is such, you know, that man, I don't know. He's forgiving. He's a decent human being. But I wish we had some type of, you know how they had in South Africa the truth. I don't want to call it reconciliation. In Zambia, I think we should have called it the Truth Commission. The Truth Commission. We should have created a platform, a safe place for people that endured hell during the tyrannical reign of the PF, and people tell their stories. People should tell what they went through. The president himself, every so often, he tells his story. If you read his book, he tells horrific stories, things that he endured. I'll tell you, when we were in the Copper Belt, there's a hotel there called Mwewa Hotel. This is we stayed at this beautiful, it's a lovely hotel owned by a Zambian business, a Zambian family. This hotel endured hell, because this was one of the hotels that would accommodate HH when HH was in opposition. This hotel would provide him with refuge. Whenever HH needed to seek refuge and audience and the opportunity to speak to the people in the community, it was Mwewa Hotel that provided HH with some semblance of refuge. But can I tell you that PF brutalized Mwewa Hotel, brutalized it. They wanted to crush it. They wanted to destroy it. The people that work at Mwewa Hotel would say, every day we would come to work, we were so scared and so fearful. We didn't know if this was the day that they would burn this place down. PF cadres would walk in with impunity and say, we know you're harboring HH. We know HH is here and we're here to destroy this place. They went through that for 7 years. Imagine a business going through that for 7 years. A business going through that for 7 years. Now, the same Mwewa Hotel, the owners and the people that work there say, it's like a miracle. We no longer have to worry about our car park being inundated with thugs and driving through our car park, screaming and shooting guns in the air. We lived in fear. And so now the owner of the hotel was saying to me, now I wake up and I think it's a miracle. Just to be able to wake up with a clear mind and walk outside and stand in front of our hotel, totally peaceful. Those PF guys today are singing, "We shall overcome." Councillor Mwanza, UPND Councillor Mwanza, Harry Mwangankumbla Ward, he said, Mr. Mwewa, we used to move. My family and I, we couldn't live in one house. Because if the PF cadres knew where we lived, they would kill us. So we were like nomads. Sometimes I would live this side, my wife and my children would live somewhere else. Sometimes I would send my wife to a different house, my children a different house. That's how they lived. Today, PF is singing, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Someday. Overcome what, you jokers? I'll never forget, in February, March of 2021, I got a phone call from Gary Nkombo. He calls me Chitty. He says, Chitty is one of my names. I tell you, I have several names. Chitambala, Chitty, Kasuba, Kafrimbi, Mwansa, Shimutea, Shimoni, Mwewa. Those are my names. He calls me up and says, Chitty, we need to talk to you. I said, are we good? He says, no, we're fine. We just need to talk to you. Can we meet? I said, sure. Where do you want us to meet? He says, come through the industrial area. There's an office there, and I'll let you know what we need to talk about. So I drove out to the industrial area, and I met Gary. And Gary is someone I've known for many, many years, and I love him. He's such a wonderful guy. And he said to me, he said, we as a party are seriously considering adopting you as the mayoral candidate for Lusaka. Now remember, this was February, it was February, March, January, February. Yes, it was February of 2021. This was before the tripartite general elections of that year, which were to be held in August, later that year. This conversation was in February of 2021. The general elections were to be held in August of the same year. So he says to me, he says, we're thinking of adopting you as the candidate on the UPND ticket for mayor of this city. I looked at Gary and I said, Gary, first of all, thank you. Thank you for even considering me. Thank you for the opportunity. But the way I know PF, and where you have to understand the geopolitical locale or location of this building, Simoson. Simoson is located in a very politically charged area, very charged. And in those days, PF controlled this area like the Nazis controlled Germany. In those days, if you're UPND, there was no UPND anything that used to walk through here. If you just wore a red t-shirt, those are not fake stories. Those are not fake stories. You think they are fake because you didn't see it happen. You could not wear red here. Manchester United was prohibited, was a persona non grata here. It was a rejected team. Why? Because it was red. So you couldn't wear that. So I looked at Gary and I said, Gary, thank you, but I'm going to have to turn you down because I know how PF thinks. I said to Gary, Gary, if I were to post, we were in the industrial area. I said, Gary, if I were to post right now, as I'm sitting here with you in the industrial area, I post, I'm running for mayor on UPND ticket. By the time I drive from industrial area to go back to Simoson, which is here, by the time I arrive, Gary, Simoson will be on fire. Simoson will be in flames. Simoson will be destroyed, and the police will do nothing. They will just stand there and say, ati yo Mwewa lipa UPND ticket alifu okuba mayor. Ingefe bawo chechikulwa. Teba kada ba PF. Oh, afi ba chita, awo chera chiabipa. Nomba nga omuliro, nga ba fire brigade bali kwisa. Nga ba fire brigade kuti baisa na ma PF kadazi bale ocha Simoson bese kuno. Bese mukusiza fiji. Awo chera chiabipa. So chapo ba batoba. That is how the conversation would have gone. And can I tell you what Gary said to me? I'll never forget these words from Gary. He said, you know, we thought so. We thought you would say that, but we felt it important to ask you. We looked at your geopolitical locale, and we pretty much thought that, but we wanted you to know that we were thinking that way. Okay? But your reasons are valid, because I've experienced the brutality of PF. When I sued PF cadres for illegally occupying a piece of land that we were legally leasing from Lusaka City Council, I took them to court for 1 year, 6 months. When I won that case and there was a court order to remove those cadres from that car park, mind you, for the 2 years that, it was almost 2 years, 1 year, one and a half years, almost 2 years. No one from Lusaka City Council ever came here to ask the cadres to move. No one. Lusaka City Council wasn't even making 1 kwacha from the occupation of these PF cadres who were using that land as an illegal bus station. And yet we were the ones leasing that land. We were the ones receiving a bill. Those PF cadres were using that land for free. And when I showed their commander the court order that said, get off of that land, give it back to Simoson. Ooh. I'm a PF cadres. Mawe. Bafumine ku intercity. Bafumine ku Chibodia. Bambi ku Kanyama. Badi Shilepano more than 200 Chitambala techu tupoke kapaki yo alikwata chisimo soni fwe balanda tulechula iwolelila fyeweka iwe ichi chikapakta waka chiwomfye wala chimona. Mwewa, you've taken the kapak from us. You are so selfish. But we tell you now, Mwewa, you will never use this kapak. We are going to prohibit you from doing it. Bakanganja. Stephen Kampyongo and the Bakanganja sent more than 100 police officers here based on that court order. The police came here. I have pictures, I've documented the whole thing. They came and they said, Mwewa, we are assigned to protect you while you put up the fence. As soon as you finish the fence, we have to go. We are only here for 2 weeks. Can I tell you, every day for 2 weeks, PF cadres would be marching around here singing, Baka pokola bakaya, Baka fumapu pano baka pokola, Elionga baya baka pokola ukachimona. The police are going to go one day. And when they go, you are going to see what we're going to do to you. Baka pokola ba did after 2 weeks, fence to Abika. The day the police left, PF cadres came and they closed the gate. They said, you're never going to use this car park. I stood by the door. I said, Wane, I have a court order here. There's a court order here. And you know, when you're in that frenzy, Wane, I'm telling you, all it takes is just one stone, one kick, one fall to the ground, and you are finished. Now in Shimumutima, I don't know where the grace came from, but I knew what I was doing. I knew that this was a do or die. I'm not going to give up this place for these guys. I knew that in my heart. I'm not doing it. I would rather die than give it up to a bunch of thugs. Oh, they sang, they threatened, they yelled, they screamed. They did everything, every which way but loose. I just stood there. Do what you want. If you're going to kill us in broad daylight. But I've got a court order. They did that for a couple of days. They would scream, yell, threaten. I'd leave. The next day, I'd try to open the gates. They would close the gates. And they would call them all. Hey, what you I'd call the police would come, the cadres would scatter. We went through that for about a month. Finally, they stopped. That's how we got this car park back. Today, when I hear PF singing, we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Overcome what? You vagabonds, you despots, you leeches, you bottom feeders, you moochers. The brutality of the PF. My story is one of millions of stories. The gentleman's story that I narrated to you, his story is just one of millions of stories. Councillor Aaron Mwanza of Vuhari Mwangankumbla Ward, his story is just one of millions of stories. HH, his story. I was talking to a young lady, I forget her name now, when we were in the Copper Belt. She was one of the people that helped HH escape through the roof. Remember that story? Remember that guy, the guy that was killed by his chick? What was the chick's name? Tell me in the comments. What was that dame that killed this Jerabo? There's a young girl out there, a young chick that killed her boyfriend. Tell me in the comments his name. Tell me his name. I'll read it here as soon as you tell me. Tell me. I'll read it here in a moment. If you tell me the name of the guy who was killed by his dame, his chick, his girlfriend or something, and I'll read it here. Here we go. Chile 1. Is it Chile 1? Chile 1? Yeah. Okay. Is that his? Was that not the singer, but another guy? The lady, we were in the Copper Belt, and the lady she was one of the people that helped HH escape through the roof. HH's story is one of millions of stories. Somebody here is saying, you were seen dancing with them, we don't trust you. Guys, I've explained that 1,000 times. During any time a political party hires you to cover their event, whether it's PF, UPND, we are a media house. We cover the event. I've said that 1 billion times. If you don't accept that, that's fine, but that's my truth. That is my truth, and I'm sticking to it. And I've always maintained my position on that, and I feel I've been very clear on that point. Of course, it's convenient for some of you to use that. I'm the one that filmed that. It's not like somebody secretly filmed me. I am the one that filmed that, and I'm the one that posted that. That was during Miles Sampa's mayoral race in Kanyama. PF hired me. They gave me 10,000 or 15,000 kwacha to cover the event. It was a paid political advert. I still do it today, and I would do it for the UPND as well. I do it for anybody. And guys, understand, as we're now going into the election period, if you've got a platform, if you have a Facebook, Insta, YouTube, TikTok platform, invoice these political parties. Invoice them. Make money from political adverts. That has never changed. SML TV will never change that position. During the elections, as long as you pay, we will cover you. As long as you pay, we will invoice you. That's difficult for some of you to accept, but it's okay. You know why? Because I don't care. I don't care. You can jump through this. I really don't care. That's the truth. All righty. Somebody says, are you standing for mayor? I'm going to announce that on the 2nd of April. So let me also just give you one last story. I was telling Gary, as we were talking, do you guys remember Kennedy Kamba? Kennedy Kamba, yes, Kennedy Kamba. You remember him? Kasmati invoice, indeed. Tell me if you remember Kennedy Kamba. Tell me. Somebody says, Kunda says, ignore such critics, they are PF chaps. And I'm fine to answer that question. And my response to that question has never changed. It's always been the same. Never changed. And it will never change. You know, that's just the truth. Yeah, you remember Kennedy Kamba? Kennedy Kamba was the PF National Youth Chairman. There's a reason I'm bringing his name up. I'll explain. I'll explain why I'm bringing his name up. Just tell me if you remember him. And I'm dovetailing this to the conversation I had with Gary. I was explaining to Gary. I said, Gary, you know, it's so interesting that you're asking me to stand as mayor on the UPND ticket. Barely 2 weeks ago, Kennedy Kamba, and Kennedy Kamba is somebody that I know and I talked to, I interacted with on many, many different levels. He never did help me with anything though. I mean, I knew him I just knew him, I'd talk to him. Any help I ever asked him for, whenever I would say to Kennedy Kamba, you know, these PF cadres are bothering me here, Kennedy would just pay lip service to it. Kennedy would always act upset. Mwewa, bala kuchusha. Lekani alafu tumina phone fi mambale fi bala kuchusha. But he would never ever do a thing. Those PF cadres would still come here. So Kennedy Kamba, 2 weeks before Gary called me. Just out of the blue, Kennedy Nkombo phoned me up and said, Mwewa, some colleagues and I, we are discussing here. We just want to know. We've never heard you denounce HH. Why? I said, excuse me? Yeah, we are here with our colleagues. We are discussing. And you are a topic here. We just want to know. None of us here have ever heard you denounce HH. Why? Why don't you denounce him? I said, well, I don't have any reason to do that. Why would I do that? No, Mwewa, you have to choose, pick a side. Tell us if you are with us or if you are with him. Because Mwewa, if you are with him, then we are going to engage you as a political opponent. Just tell us so that we know how to handle you. But from what we are discussing here, it appears you have never denounced him, which is a bit of a concern for us because we don't know where you stand. Mwewa, do you know what I'm saying? I said, look, you want me to do what? No, we want you to denounce HH. Just to go on your live and just insult him or something. Just to say something. I said, well, Kennedy, I'm not doing that. Okay? Then it's clear. It's clear where you are. Okay, Mwewa. I just wanted to know. Click. So I said to Gary, I said, Gary, Kennedy called me 2 weeks ago. If I accept your proposal that I stand on the UPND ticket at this time, in this climate, Kennedy Nkombo is going to call his colleagues and say, you see, I used to tell you. Huh? We knew that he was not with us. So I think let's just do the needful. Let's engage him. Let us just engage him now, so that I'm a grave to a session, to a Felix, to a fool, so that to a Musambishom remember to a Mwewa, I am politics number, Chisimos on the toilet session, to a church. Thank God PF is no longer in power. Boy, I tell you what. So I said to Gary, Gary, thank you, but I can't accept that because the moment I say yes, when I go to Simoson, and the police won't even be there. Gary said, I understand. So that's what I wanted to share with you about PF's brutality. As far as Gary's issue is concerned, I echo what Gary has said. As far as Gary's recent issue is concerned, don't listen to this Nigerian false prophet, or you see a zero, or you Andrew that child molester, Andrew Ejimadu. Andrew only repeats the information that is given to him. So sometimes when he's given wrong information, he'll come to you with wrong information or false information. Gary has made it clear that he served as the chairman for elections since 2017. He's been there for many, many years, and it's time for somebody else. The president sees it fit to reassign Gary somewhere else, possibly. I mean, if that's the way it's going to go. I'm not saying that the president has reassigned him. I'm saying if the president so chooses to reassign him, that's the president's prerogative. That's the UPND power structure's prerogative. But for you to sit there and listen to some Nigerian false prophet who has a vested interest in Zambia, because all that Andrew wants is to come back to Zambia. Because here in Zambia, people treat that chap like a king. They don't treat him like a king there in Nigeria. It's you Zambians that entertain that chap. If we don't entertain him, me, personally, I don't entertain that chap because I see right through you fraud. Okay. What was the last thing I was going to say? What was the last thing I'm talking about? Tell me in the comments. Oh, about Mundubide. You know, yesterday, when Brian Mundubide was summoned by the ACC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, You know, the location of that commission, this is the reason I say, and I'll never stop saying it. When you have street vendors who are operating on the street, you've got a very big problem. Because you have an instant mob to mobilize in any direction you want. If you've got a street full of vendors, depending on who you are, if you are ruling party, all those vendors will support you. If UPND goes there, they would say the same thing. Opposition chimona bonse abandi bangwele twala chitaku kuchushiko bonse abandi bangwele ba opposition balobeli auma. If Harry Kalaba goes there, citizen first, those chaps are instant. Those are just mobs for hire. So when Brian Mundubile went there with his colleagues, they could see that they were creating an atmosphere where the vendors could see, oh, ati ba ACC naba beta ACC has summoned him kuti ukubanaba 1.5 billion kwacha mu road contract ukukudala huko ndani yakamba so uyu kambwili anakambati uyu Mundubile nikawalala uyu. It appears there was some sort of there was some underhanded tactics he was using some so if you don't buy Sabrine umunga ingira mu ACC balamuchuchunganya balamuchuchengegeks. So afi twala chitapano as a street vendors lakini nomba tuime tupange chimwela lelo we want change bakabola la fiebeka. I'm a street vendors. Bwana, they are up to no good. Street vendor, if you're a street vendor. This is why I say vendors don't belong in the street. They belong in the market. They belong in a designated area. They belong in a gazetted area. They belong in the market where they have access to clean water. They have access to shelter. They pay a stipend to the council. They pay a form of rent to the council. They become a part of the economic activity of a city by paying their way. On the street, who's benefiting? It's just the cadres. And all you have to do, all Brian Mundubile's colleagues did, was simply said, "Abama vendors already have power. Chiteni mobilize. Fiyanga na fuma mo ACC. Yande fuma. Mubebe kuba lipile fama 50 kwa chaba menjwa. Ma 50 ma 20. Mubebe wapange chongo nombe. Lelo. Mwale chimona. Challenge tika." As a result, when you disturb the peace, tranquility in that manner, bwana makufyanda. Kukustafiantics. This is not PF. It's not. This is a different dispensation. That one you must understand. So banamufyanda. Uja chita ni uja banamufyanda uja. The only thing that hurt me, though, I must confess, it saddened me to see Andrew, is that his name, Andrew, being loaded into the police car, and he fell on his shoulder. You know, when we reach a certain age, falling is the worst possible thing to happen. I would imagine he dislocated that shoulder. The way he fell into the back of the police car. I think he dislocated his shoulder. To see that man in that position really saddened me, because none of that was necessary. When a political leader is being summoned, allow them to go. He is the one who's got things to say. Does Nyasulu, is he the one who's summoned there? So why did he go there? For what? I mean, for what? For who? For why? You end up being overtaken by events. This is the result. I mean, this is there. So, Vane, let us be mindful. Let us be careful. Let us be prudent in the way we conduct ourselves. Makamaka Langula, the arena of politics, albeit Zambian politics. Yeah, to apena mwe. Wasanga vena ose mugati chinja yo ma politics. Ushena amunchita mbwino. Na pena oyo ili oyo. Ma politics yadia. Yeah, so I will never forget. I just, you know, when I look back at the way Kennedy Kamba was sort of talking to me, that conversation just sent chills down my spine. Mwewa, I mean, just tell us. Are you politically aligned so that we know how to engage you? In Zambia, we say engage. We don't say engage. It's engage, okay? That's the correct pronunciation of the word, okay? It's engage. But Kennedy Kamba, we know, tell us so that we take you as a political opponent, so that we know how to engage you. Just give us the position, so that we are aware. It cracks me up every time I do that. Hey, I gotta go.